there and welcome to Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups, innovation, technology, disruption. Basically, if it falls under the gambit of the new economy, it's going to be here on your favorite channel, ET Now, at sharp 6 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, just like all the stakeholders of this community that we feature on this show, the team that puts the show together, the Startup Central team, thrives on constructive criticism. Write into us, tell us how to improve, to take this show to the next level, what we should add, what we should subtract, how we should do things differently. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. And let's get straight down to business. Cashfree is a B2B full stack payments solution. So it's in the business of digital payments. It's a banking tech startup as well. Now, why are we talking about Cashfree? Because today, the country's largest bank, SBI, has made an undisclosed investment in Cashfree. With that, it's become a minority investor. What's so hot about Cashfree that SBI decided to give it a check? What's the future of SBI and Cashfree together? To talk about that, I'm being joined by Cashfree's co-founder and CEO, Akash Sinha, who's joining us live on this edition of the Startup Central. Akash, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations. You know, you've been incubated by none other than PayPal. You're a Y Combinator, it's a Y Combinator startup as well. And now, you know, it's a big deal. The country's largest bank has decided to bet on Cashfree. My first question is, how did you convince SBI?
I'll come to that. I mean, thank you for inviting me on this show. SBI is one of the, I'd say they are the biggest lender definitely, but they are one of the most trusted brand in India. And we are in discussion for the last 6 to 7 months. They looked into the business. They like what we are doing in payments industry. And we as a Cashfree wants to build most reliable payment infra in India. And that's where I think we both clicked, right? We are trying to build the best payment infra. SBI as a bank would want to push, digital payments a bit more into the market, right? So that's where I think we clicked. The goal is to boost digital payments in India, bring more people into the financial inclusion. And that's where, SBI wanted to support us in this journey.
Okay. I understand that you have raised shy of $50 million till date. The valuation is $200 million. But the next question I want to ask you is, having SBI come on board as a minority shareholder, is it a game changer? What happens next? Like, what the synergies are obvious. The bigger question is how much business SBI wants to throw your way, what SBI wants to do with Cashfree.
Right. I think the future is yet to be seen. I think the larger part here is, right, to grow this ecosystem well. I believe, fintech should work more closely with the banks. Banks in India have visibility of immense number of problems in the market, and fintechs are in position to build solutions for them in the best possible way. That's where I believe this partnership will work very well. Right? We can use SBI's learning, we can get their view of the market, and we are here to build a solution for the market. Right? That is the starting point, and that's what we're going to continue with them. And that's where I believe this investment will help, our entity in this journey, right? To access problems in the market and try to build a solution which will work with the people in the best way.
Okay. So what changes? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, having SBI on board? Does anything change?
One is the trust, right? I mean, in the payments and fintech space, as a startup, you need trust, right? I mean, since we are dealing with money, you need trust of lot many people when you are out there distributing the product. So that is one, definitely going to change for Cashfree, right? Since SBI has looked into the business, they like what we are doing. So this comes as a validation of, how we are running this business, right? Or the kind of product we are building in the market. So that is a big boost for, even everyone at Cashfree. And plus it will help us, portray the same trust in the market. Second, I just mentioned, right, by working closely with them, we can get a first-hand view of problems which consumers in India are facing. Right? So instead of doing a lot of experiment, we can have a direct access to the problem, and then we can build a solution. And if needed, we can seek their guidance to know whether we are going in the right direction or not. So these two, I believe, would be the larger takeaways from this partnership.
Okay. What are Cashfree's plans going forward? Can you tell us a little bit about it? You are already, besides in India, 8 other countries. You're doing transactions worth about $20 billion on an annual way, in an annual manner. Tell us a bit about your future plans.
I think there are a few short-term plans we have listed for ourselves. As of today, we will be processing close to 2 million transactions per day, and we want to take this number to 10 million transactions in next 24 to 30 months. So that is one of the larger goals we have pushed. Second, we want to improve our backend infrastructure which powers payments in India. We want to get in a space where we can build core payments tech in India, which can then power a lot of user-facing consumer apps going in the future. Right. Third area, we want to go much deeper into the other geographies. Right. We want to be present in other emerging markets in the world. And we believe India as a country has set a good benchmark in payments. Right. We are a leader in terms of number of real-time payments we process. Right. We process more than 25 billion real-time payments in India. And our second competitor, China, which is doing like 15 billion payments. Right. And we can use this learning, we can use the technology to go into other emerging countries who also have this need of bringing more people into financial inclusion. And we can try to distribute a product in those economies. Right. Third, we also want to work with other smaller startups in this ecosystem, right? See if we can complement a product so that the entire portfolio of Cashfree offering improves over time.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and ask you one question, Akash, and that is, right now, the global liquidity position, we all know how it is. We all know how a lot of that cash, all of that funds are coming to India. We've also seen how there has been an explosion in fintech that has been going on for some time, but those who are also in the market, like yourselves, have raised big bucks. They've become unicorns. They've entered the $2 billion club. Look at Razorpay, for example. Why is Cashfree not disclosing the amount raised? And are you looking out for more funds as well?
No, it's both. I think, this is a minority investment, right? This is not a major round. So we did a B round last year, and this SBS round is the extension of that B round. That is one. And second, we are in the market. We are looking to raise our next round of funding. And this is largely to fuel our inorganic growth in the market, right? Second, also carry out new experiments. Right? I hope we should be able to do one more round by end of this year, right? To fuel our ambitions around payment expansion. Then secondly, as you said, right, fintech as a segment will continue to attract a lot of money from outside, right? Fintech is an enabler for the economy. If India has to dream to reach $5 billion economy down the line, then fintech has to unlock a lot of potential of the people. But right now, there's a lot of wastage of efficiency, time, money, right? Just doing things around money. I take one example of what we did, right? We have a product called Cashfree, through which any e-commerce company can process refund to their customers within 10 minutes. And before us, the company used to take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours just by asking details from customer and processing their refund. So we are essentially saving 20 hours for every customer. If you scale it up in terms of size of e-commerce and number of customers you use, we are ended up saving a lot of time for these online businesses. Right? Same thing we did with our instant payouts, similar thing we did with wage payouts. If you have an on-demand fleet, you can pay through Cashfree within seconds to them. You don't have to make them wait for 2 days just so that they get their money into the bank account. We already have started a journey. The intent is to unlock more businesses, support more business use cases, and make money movement much, much easier for people. And the fourth part, which is important, is the cybersecurity, risk and fraud. Right? Without risk and fraud mitigation, I don't think we can grow very well in the market. Right? You must be coming across numerous cases of scamming, numerous cases of people like tricking other customers and stealing money out of their account. So this is one of the bigger problems for digital payments firm like us. And we also want to build right solutions to tackle this problem.
Okay, I take your point, and you would have obviously seen a lot of acceleration in your plans also thanks to COVID-19. But before I let you go, one thing that popped up for me when you were telling me the future growth plans, you talked about a consumer app. What exactly does that mean? You're primarily B2B, so what can you give us more details? What you meant by that? Do you mean an app for your consumers?
No, we are not meaning that. I think the plan here is to how do we support all these consumer apps in the market to try to to give a great experience to their users. Right? Today, consumer finance apps might be helping people with investment, deposits, but they might be issuing some kind of cards to them. So Cashfree wants to build the backend layer through which these consumer apps can fulfill their banking needs just by talking to Cashfree, and should be able to give a great experience to their consumers. One of the example I take, right? We have come across a company who's trying to build a some sort of banking app for the laborers who work in a factory. So these guys are mostly underbanked, but now they want to use Cashfree so that they can bring these customers into the fold of financial inclusion. They should be able to open their account. They should be able to issue cards to them so that these guys get into the habit of savings. Right? That is our plan. So we want to build the infrastructure so that it becomes easier for businesses to launch new consumer apps in the market, especially in the fintech and payments domain.
And the fintech explosion, of course, has started with the NPCI and UPI that heralded that digital payments revolution. But Akash, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations. We look forward to being in touch with you and more interviews. Now, I was talking about UPI and NPCI, and here's why. Today, we're going to play you a recorded interview that we had with the Chief Operating Officer, Nayantara Rai, of the NPCI. We actually got her on ET Now on the back of an analysis that we had carried out, which was, and that showed, if we compared the data from March, when the economy was relatively open, before the second wave, and 31st May, we saw the resilience of UPI. The transaction values were down 2.8%, whereas those for NEFT, RTGS, credit card, debit cards were down 30 to 40%. What is it about this resilience of the UPI? What are the future plans? How is it going to sustain the explosive growth it has seen in the past? Here's an interview that we had earlier with the NPCI COO.
So I think this is clearly indicating that UPI has become part of day-to-day life of a number of users who are the users of UPI. So last year, during the lockdown period, similar time frame, we would have seen about a 19 to 20% dip, whereas this year it's practically flat, just around in the range of 2.5%. And here we have seen this growth in volume and the resilience across all banking categories. So not just the large commercial banks, including the cooperative banks that have all gone live on UPI. We have nearly 170 banks that are live on UPI. The volume has been consistent all through. So a number of people have started using UPI. They have heard from friends and family, and they feel that it is very convenient, very safe, it's instantaneous. So somebody, before they just start working from home, are able to finish their, grocery payments, or able to finish whatever they need to do without really having to even step out. So I think all of that is coming together and making UPI practically a habit in people's day-to-day life today.
So what do you think changed between wave 1 and wave 2? In wave 1, the strictest lockdown on this planet, which was announced by the center, unlike this year when it was done by states, it was partial lockdowns, etc., UPI has obviously fared better. I'm sure even you remember those headlines like yesterday from last year, how UPI is down 30%, 40%.
So, I think the big difference is in the last 1 year, a number of people have started using UPI who were not users earlier. A number of people who were infrequent users of UPI have started using UPI for all their transactions. So we meet a number of people in our day-to-day life, in our research. We come across a large swath of population which is actually saying, I actually don't even carry cash anymore. I'm just carrying my phone, and whatever I need to do, I'm able to make the transaction on UPI. So the acceptance of UPI across nearly all merchant categories. The last year, I think, when lockdown happened, is when people started actually telling their breadwala and their vegetable vendors and all the small merchants with whom they interact on a day-to-day basis. Actually, consumers got merchants onto UPI. Both to help the merchant as well as to help themselves. And this has really created the users of UPI who today don't think twice, right? And these are all essential services that have come onto UPI. Now, what we're also seeing is, the use of the UPI ID. So again, last year, I think we were in a phase where people would think if I use a particular app, whether it's a payment app or a banking app, unless the other party has the same app, I may not be able to make a transaction. So that has changed, and the understanding of the UPI ID as a common factor. If I have my UPI ID, anyone using any bank app, using any payment app will be able to make a payment. So that again has been a big enabling factor. We also see a trend where certain merchant categories, when I look at this year, and this is expected, right? So you see retail, restaurants, dining, fuel. So these are some of the categories that are having a bit of a lower usage. But categories around grocery, categories around OTT, cable TV, mobile recharge, these are all being heavily used, and really kind of driving some of the usage up on that sort of day-to-day use for in the life of a customer. What we are also doing this year, which I think is very tuned to the needs of users in Wave 2, is enabling the entire healthcare ecosystem. So while they are all enabled on UPI, last year we had a number of small merchants who had QRs, but nobody was visiting the shop personally, so they started getting enabled on what is called link-based payment. You take the order on the phone, the merchant is able to send a link, the customer is able to make a payment, and the transaction is done, and whatever is being ordered is delivered to the home. So that's already in place, right? And it's working perfectly well. But we realized this year with the healthcare system, when somebody is getting a diagnostic test, is it a RT-PCR test, or is it any other kind of a test happening in the residence? Then these kind of very convenient payment mechanisms had not yet been enabled. So we really looked at it, working with the ecosystem, hospitals, diagnostic centers, pharmacies, clinics. These are the categories where there has been a incremental focus this year, which has also started creating some sort of an impact. We are seeing some extra incremental volumes happening in those categories, and there is some more work to be done there.
Okay, so those would be obvious tailwinds if during a pandemic you start allowing and integrating healthcare services. But Ms. Rai, I also want to ask you one question, which is, and this was our interpretation, that RTGS, NEFT are predominantly used by large businesses, mid to large businesses. That's not UPI's customer base, if I can call it that. Credit card, debit card, I can understand, discretionary spend, a pandemic, the second wave was more deadly. Would that be a correct conclusion?
So UPI has both segments. It is used
because it's scary. Because it's scary if NEFT and RTGS is down 30 to 40%. Because the point is, Rai, if NEFT and RTGS is down 30 to 40%, it indicates the indications are not good for the economy. It sends a bad signal as such. From that perspective, an indicator of the economy.
So I think what that is telling you is what's happening on the B2B sector, right? So those are slightly larger value payments happening probably in the supply chain of a manufacturing concern or a large distribution chain. But largely, if you look at where UPI stands, these are more retail transactions. It could be a business paying refunds back to the customer on the payment side, or of course, consumers making payments for all their day-to-day use. So there is a certain difference in the way both these categories operate. One is more business-driven, one is more retail and consumer-driven. But if the consumer demand is healthy, and that's what we are seeing through these transactions, then there will be a backward impact in the supply chain. So I think we should see that in the months to come, in the way how that plays out in all the payment systems.
UPI, of course, has been applauded globally from, even the Google chief, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella of Microsoft, all of that. But, since I have you on the show, Mr. Rai, I'd like to ask you that where will the next wave of growth come for UPI, even in the terms of number of users? You've got a game changer of sorts from the RBI allowing interoperability. You did allude to that also in one of the answers. But how will you grow? Or would you say it's also hitting a plateau of sorts?
Oh no, I think it's nowhere near hitting a plateau. There are still large swaths of the country where we still need to have UPI users come on board. If you look at mobile phone users, the smartphone users, I believe we have addressed a large part of that population. A research that we did earlier in the year in 2020, the NPCI price research, that showed us 1/3 of households in the country are using UPI, including 25% from the lower income households. So while that's great news, we still have segments associated with feature phones. We still have segments associated with people who are not yet as aware and not yet using UPI. Right, there's a big awareness story that is still to be solved for, and all of these are what we are looking at as we're looking at the new use cases. And I think whatever we are doing on the healthcare segment is also going to be one of the enablers that we are alluding to. International is, you've already spoken about it. The NPCI International Private Limited is the entity that NPCI has formed, and the objective of this entity is really to take the UPI story global. That's in very early stage, and a number of conversations are in play there. And as things play out, we'll be able to share more about that.
The new RBI mandate allowing interoperability, what is that going to mean for the wallets, and what is it also going to mean for UPI? Can this be the commercial moment of UPI?
So the wallets, amongst banks, you already have the large commercial banks, you have the small finance banks, the payment banks, the cooperative banks, and the rural banks, right? And we have pretty much this entire ecosystem that's operating on UPI today. It's a great story, and we are really very excited about having PPIs come and join on board for UPI. PPIs amongst themselves, cater to a large swath of the country. So people tend to have bank accounts, but still there are certain purposes for which they prefer to operate out of a wallet. And the interoperability will give the convenience. It will give merchants the reach of this large base. It will also give the consumers the reach for a number of digital payments that they will be able to make. So I think it will be a multiplier to the depth and reach that UPI has today. So it will be one of the big trigger elements in 2021.
And not competing organizations that are being flanked by the RBI, for which bids and all have been submitted. That's something else that NPCI will have to deal with, and UPI will also have to compete with.
That's right. I think we'll do that when the time comes.